It has become fashionable this time of year, especially for some of Toronto's most powerful people with stuff and status and power, to spend the night pretending, essentially, that they're homeless and poor. I don't know if you've noticed it. There was something in the paper the other week about some of our politicians who wanted to sort of better relate to the youth of our city who are homeless. And so they spent the night on the street, sort of huddled in their sleeping bags and up against walls and whatnot. It may be a noble endeavor, but I think it's a bit problematic as well, because I think the only way you can really know what it is to be poor and or homeless is to be poor and or homeless. I also remember a few years ago where a number of churches in our diocese, and I actually was a part of this, decided that for 1 week our food budget would be the same as that for people who are on welfare. I don't think I've had Kraft dinner since. And I'm not sure I got any closer to understanding what it really is to be poor and to be marginalized. I'm thinking about this today because there is a way of understanding Jesus' birth. There's a way of understanding the incarnation as Jesus, one who is mighty and powerful and the master of the universe, who was, as we heard today, in the beginning, decided that it was time to sort of slip into a sleeping bag and hang out with mere mortals for a little while so that he could understand what it was like to sort of be on the other side of the universe, so to speak. This is actually a very popular notion. As a matter of fact, one could read St. Paul in such a way that in the book of the letter to the Philippians, where Paul seems to argue this, that Jesus did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking on the nature of a human person. What does that say about us? Right? And unfortunately, this way of understanding humanity has taken hold in a powerful way. And I was going to say for better or worse, but to me it seems mostly for worse. This idea that humanity at its very heart is deeply, deeply flawed. And that flesh, I mean, when you hear the word flesh, and if you spend any time in church, does that come with positive connotations? Not usually, right? And it makes me realize why some people only come to church at Christmas, because you can be guaranteed comfort and joy and not sin and guilt. But what do we just hear? And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. There's a different way of coming at this. There's a different theology about the incarnation, about the birth of Jesus. Not Jesus, slipping into a sleeping bag and slumming with us for a period of time. But God actually understanding and knowing that the only way that God's love was going to be made known, and the only way God was going to be made known, was taking on human flesh. In other words, the best hope for the world, the best hope for humanity is human flesh, is humanity itself. The incarnation is not God denigrating God's self in order to make us feel bad about ourselves so Jesus could kind of save us from our human condition. But the incarnation, the birth of Jesus, was the only way, the best way, that God could possibly share God's love and be loved. Because the best hope for humankind, the best hope for the world, is human flesh. Now that's pretty nifty theology. But right about now you might be saying, yeah, well, what's that got to do with me? Well, what does that have to do with us? Precisely the fact that we are human. Our flesh, we are human. And we are the best hope for the world and for humanity. That in taking on human flesh in the person of Jesus Christ, the person who would most significantly, profoundly reflect what it is to be God in the world, well, that had to take place in human flesh. And it still does, my friends. And that's the first point. That our flesh, our humanity, is the best hope for the world and for the rest of humanity. That the way that God is going to love will be through us. Now, that comes with a price. We know that. Jesus understood the price. But the last word, as we hear at Easter, is life and love. So, the second point, we need to kind of grow up and grow into that potential. And the only way that we can do that is to make room. That's the other story that we hear at Christmas of Joseph and Mary coming to Bethlehem, and there was no room in the inn. I'm compelled by the singular nature of that word. There was no room in the inn. Our Bible doesn't say there were no rooms in the inn. I sometimes wonder, were there rooms, but just no room for the likes of Mary and Joseph, for Jesus, the Savior of the world? Perhaps rooms, but no room. And I wonder today, on Christmas Day, when most profoundly we have this invitation to take and accept Jesus into our lives, into the inn that is our heart and lives. I wonder, are there rooms? I think there are. Speaking for myself, I've got a bit of time. I've got some space. I've got some gifts. I've got some skills. There are rooms in my life that are available for God and God's mission in the world. But is there room in my life? Is there room? Or would I rather fill those spaces with other things, perhaps that serve me, for instance, rather than God or others? So there's another Christmas challenge. Our flesh, our humanity is the best hope for the world. But is there room? Is there room in the inn that is our lives, our gifts, our skills, our time? Is there room for God, for God's love, and for us to express God's love to others? The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. The Word continues to be made flesh, our flesh. That is the heart of the Christmas story. So we are the best hope. We are the best hope for the world and for humanity. And the best thing that we could do on Christmas is make room. So my friends, make room.